Can you please stop bothering my kid?
Sorry.
Smile, and maybe tomorrow you'll find that life is still worthwhile.
Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and having watched Joker a few nights ago, I thought it would be nice to do a review and explore one of the most anticipated films of the year. I'm going to issue a spoiler alert as I'll be delving into plot points of the film and an overall explanation of Joker. So if you haven't seen it and have recklessly clicked on this video, you've been warned. Co-written by Scott Silver and Todd Phillips, who also directed the flick, Joker is a thrilling, depressing, and all the while mesmerizing look at one of DC's greatest villains. The film explores the progression of Arthur Fleck, a mentally ill sad loner that is hanging onto his sanity by a thread, to his transformation into the Joker. With a dark and gritty 80s Gotham City becoming a boiling pot of divisiveness, cruelty and neglect, the man is propelled into madness by the wrongdoings of others and choices he makes to navigate his way in the savage society that had turned its back on Fleck and others like him. This isn't a superhero film. It's a character drama exploring the origins and background of one of the most, if not the most interesting character in all of DC Comics. As I'd mentioned in my explanation of the trailer a few months ago, the film borrows heavily from the works of Martin Scorsese, with its story taking elements of his films Taxi Driver, about a disturbed loner with a revolver that delivers his own brand of bloody justice, the design aspects of Raging Bull, as well as concepts from King of Comedy, which revolves around a delusional comedian played by Robert De Niro, who aspires to perform on his favourite talk show. It also takes cues from David Fincher's Fight Club and the notorious Batman the Killing Joke comic book, which is held up as the closest thing to a Joker origin that fans will accept, which, like the King of Comedy, is also about a failed comedian that spirals into madness. What makes the Joker such a great villain is that we don't know very much about him, and I thought that by explaining his backstory, this would ruin what made him such a menacing tour de force, but I was pleasantly surprised to find that I was wrong. In the film, it's explained that the effects of PTSD and an overstimulated amygdala caused Arthur Fleck to perceive threat and anxiety everywhere, which led to him developing paranoid delusions and his uncontrollable laughter. In the comics, which I've discussed on numerous videos I'll be leaving links to below, the reason we don't know much about his backstory isn't from a lack of explanations given by other characters or the Joker himself as to where he came from, but more from the fact that he was such an unreliable narrator. Since much of the narrative in this film is a fantasy in his head and we see the world through his eyes, it still ties into him being an unreliable narrator and explainer of his origins.
Sometimes I remember it one way, sometimes another. If I'm going to have a past, I prefer it to be multiple choice. My point is, I went crazy.
This is one of the best films of the year, and Joaquin Phoenix, who was one of the greatest actors of his generation, doesn't disappoint. Phoenix lost over 50 pounds for the role, and with his sunken eyes and a skeletal frame, he manages to contort his body to match the twisted psyche of Joker. In the film, we find that Fleck isn't very good at his day job as a clown for hire, nor is he any better at being a comedian. Not only is he struggling with mental health problems, but he's also taking care of his sick mother, flirting with his single mum neighbour Sophie, all the while dealing with a neurological disorder that forced him to erupt into impromptu laughter, giving a fresh take behind the Joker's iconic laugh. Joaquin juggles all of this masterfully, giving us a captivating yet uncomfortable look into the mind of a disturbed man. Now, early on in the film, Arthur discovers a letter from his mother addressed to Thomas Wayne, telling him that he was the boy's father, which had me on edge, as making the Joker the half-brother of Batman is a huge liberty to take, and was my only real problem with the film. But when he confronts him, he's told that he was actually adopted by his mother, who used to work for the Waynes before suffering a mental breakdown caused by schizophrenia. This, along with everything that had happened to Fleck, sends him over the edge, with the man suffocating his mother and stabbing a former worker that led to him getting fired. He also discovers that his relationship with his neighbour that had supported him through his struggles was all in his head. This is further exacerbated by his invitation onto the Murray Franklin show in the final act, after footage of his failed stand-up routine surfaces, with the host repeatedly making fun of him. Transforming into the Joker and coming to terms with the fact that he was and always would be different, Fleck shoots Murray on live television, inciting citywide riots of support, which inadvertently leads to the death of the Waynes. In this way, the Joker becomes a catalyst for the creation of Batman, while traditionally, Batman is responsible for the Joker's existence. There are so many scenes in this film that are heart-wrenching to watch, from the character coping with the assault of a gang of youths, him losing his mental health sessions as a result of citywide budget cuts, and consequently losing all access to medication that he desperately needed, all the while having to help take care of his mother, whom he loved dearly. Phoenix's ability to convey such vulnerability and compassion is the reason we feel so invested in his character, often siding with him even when he commits such heinous crimes. The film is beautifully shot by Lawrence Sher, who skillfully captures the sad, broken and defeated Arthur Fleck climbing up towards his painful existence in darkly lit, slow panning shortcuts in the film's opening, and juxtaposes it with his literal and metaphorical descent into madness with the frenetic and liberated movements down the steps, which are fully lit with the sun on his back. The musical score by Hildur Guðnadóttir is also another triumphant achievement, with the composer knowing exactly when she needed to increase the dramatic music to indicate trouble brewing ahead, but not too early so as to arrive before the crucial moments. We hear a brief glimpse of the Joker's theme music after his first crime, which starts building up as he enters a public bathroom and begins to dance in solitude. This theme music and his dancing is also repeated throughout the film as Fleck loses more and more pieces of himself and starts becoming the Joker, with the score reaching a crescendo in the final acts of the film as chaos grips the streets around him, which, like Fleck, were also on the verge of breaking. The direction from Todd Phillips was also incredible, and I was surprised to see a mainly comedic director tackling such dark themes as well as he did, contrasting the grand scale of Gotham City and large sweeping shots to the film's star within intimate mid-shots and close-ups, forcing us to feel the immense pressure weighing down on him. There was so much buzz and controversy about this film, which won the top prize and received an 8-minute standing ovation at the Venice Film Festival. I was actually fortunate enough to attend the film festival last month whilst I was on holiday in Italy, but I was 1 week late and had missed the opportunity to watch Joker there. Prior to its worldwide release, many critics detested the film for its violent overtones, depiction of mental illness, and how it lionized the Joker and glamorized violence. But having seen the film, I don't think it treated his actions as just, but merely portrayed them in a way that we could relate to his character. I was also surprised to see that there wasn't actually that much violence in the movie. I mean, the Joker kills no more than I think 6 people, who through his point of view arguably deserve what was coming to them based on how they directly or indirectly treated him and led to his transformation. There is a great line in the film where the Joker asks Murray Franklin, his childhood hero, who had continually mocked him on live television, what do you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that abandons him and treats him like trash?
I'll tell you what you get. You get what you deserve.
Right before shooting him in the face on live TV, capturing the essence and meaning of the film perfectly. I mean, if you look at films like Deadpool and Logan, there is so much more graphic violence, with both characters killing between 50 to 100 people in each movie. I felt as though Joker wasn't glorifying violence, merely depicting it as a means of seeing the character's progression. I mean, I can understand why people may have felt unnerved by how he felt no guilt for his actions, but that's the whole point of the character. He doesn't see the world as we do. How can he? He's been raised in a way not many of us can understand, and copes with so many internal and external problems that his mind has created its own version of reality to explain what is right, what's wrong, and what's funny. I also really disagree with the comments about the film's treatment of people with mental illness. I mean, the movie does a great job of showing how people with mental health issues and those living in abject poverty needed our help, and it gets us to question how we as a society treat those that were less fortunate than ourselves, and also how we idolize the rich and powerful members of our communities. This is one of the main underlying themes of the film, and the reason why his action strikes a chord with so many others in his community that felt the way that he did, to the point that he inadvertently starts a social class rebellion in a similar vein to the French Revolution. There are so many times that we feel so bad for Fleck, especially his first attempt at stand-up comedy, as he struggles to overcome his uncontrollable laughter, which prevents him from telling his jokes. This is so painful to watch, as we know it's been his lifelong dream to make people smile and laugh, but in this moment, his body is overriding his goals, and while we do hear laughter a few seconds after he tells a bad joke, I have a feeling that, like much of what happens in the film, it's actually in his head. During interviews for Joker, Phoenix even hinted that the bullying and assault he experiences at the hands of a gang of youths at the start of the film might have actually been in his head, which begs the question, how much of what we saw in the film was real?
And this reflects the character really well.
Every beat of Joker is executed perfectly to give us an understanding of his mental state. We see him taking notes at the Pogo stand-up comedy club as another performer does his routine, but he never laughs at the punchline of the joke like the other patrons, instead laughing at times when nothing funny is being said, alluding to the dissociated mental state Fleck was in. And when he's watching the Murray Franklin show at home with his mother, we get a rough cut to him being in the audience and being asked by his idol to come up and talk about himself. There's even a beautiful moment where Murray gives him a hug and tells him that he wished he had a son like him. And this is so heartbreaking to watch, as we know it's all in his head, and we can see early on that all he wants is to be loved and accepted. This is an outstanding standalone film that has nothing to do with the DC universe that Warner Brothers has been attempting to make, and it succeeds because it's not focusing on sequels, nor is it tied with continuity issues. This meant that the director and the creative team only had to focus on one thing, which was making a good movie, and they did just that. Joaquin Phoenix's performance of the Joker is phenomenal, and I think that it rivals Heath Ledger's. I mean, the Joker in The Dark Knight is only in 25% of the movie, and he's always got Batman as his counterweight to push the narrative along, as is the case in every depiction of the villain in both the films and the comic books they're based on. But here, the entire screen time is dedicated to Joker, putting the entire burden on the antagonist, which subsequently also causes us to sympathize with him in a way I never thought was possible. If you have some spare time, I highly recommend that you watch Joaquin's interview for the film on Fox 5 DC and Jake Hamilton, where he talks about his role and his preparation for it. He is such a gentle and intelligent human being who articulately explains why he gravitated to the role of the Joker, and it's fantastic to see that he was able to leave the work on set and not bring any negativity back with him. Well, that's all for today, folks. I'm curious to hear what you guys thought of the movie, so please share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit subscribe and click the notification icon to stay up to date on all my content, and if there's anything else you'd like to request, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.
You don't listen, do you? You just ask the same questions every week. How's your job? Are you having any negative thoughts? All I have are negative thoughts. Murray, one small thing.
Yeah.
When you bring me out, can you introduce me as Joker?